But then the second I know it might happen, I kind of like take a step back and stop whatever I'm doing, right? So hearing you talking about this and the pressure on the horse, I had this session with one of my instructors at the time, and I was trying to control the horse because I wanted to show how good I was at, working with the horse. And here I am, almost an equine coach. Look at me, look at me. And then it backfired. And what I felt in that second when I was a total mess and nothing was working, I'm like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to go through with certification. This is done. It was fun. But hey, this is not for me. But thank God I had such a great instructor. He talked to me and said like, okay, is this showing up anywhere else in your life? Starting asking me
Classic.
all these questions. And I'm like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. So what I did then, I just totally decided to not be in control and see what would happen and be okay with failure or, all these icky feelings. And guess what?
What?
The
Tell
horse
me.
did exactly as I wanted it to do because I was relaxed, I was in the moment, I was okay with failure or, whatever would come up. So that was a great life lesson for me. And I think about it still to this day.
I love that. That's a great example. And I loved how you started it out by talking about patterns and talking about doing things the same way over and over again. And I think we do that, right? We're like, I'm going to do it this way. 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 And you do it that way and you keep getting the same result. You don't get a different result. Welcome to The Air is Free, the podcast that helps you stop gripping what you can't control and start embracing what you can. Join Frida Karsberg and me, Sue Willoughby, as we dive into real conversations about resilience, personal freedom, and finding your center in a chaotic world. Inspired by the Swedish expression Luften är fri, which means the air is free, this show is about letting go, trusting the process, and remembering that some things in life were meant to be free and limitless. So take a deep breath, let go of what's weighing you down, and let's get into it. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Luften är fri, which means the air is free. And today, once again, I am joined by my lovely co-host, Frida Karsberg, and we are going to continue our conversation about freedom, control, and inner peace. So the thing is that control is an illusion. So we're going to talk about the illusion of control and why we, cling to control and how it holds us back and keeps us in our comfort zone or whatever you want to call it. And how can we shift that idea or the illusion of control into a feeling of trust? So that's where we're going to launch our conversation today. How you doing today, Frida?
Big topic.
Well, we're not here to change the world. We're just here to have a discussion, and hopefully, our discussion will resonate with you in a way that we can help you, make a couple of little baby steps in your world. So,
Yeah. No, but I love baby steps or turtle steps or whatever you want to call it, like one little step at a time, right?
exactly. And that's, the tortoise and the hare, right? That's what happens. You just keep moving forward and, and don't, whatever. So let's talk about control again, but in a different way. The illusion of control.
Tell me more.
So why do you think we cling to control? You were talking last week about, feeling like you have to control every aspect of your life because that's, and I think a lot of people do that, or even if you just feel like you have to control certain things. Why do you and or people in general cling to this illusion of being in control of things? Why do you think we do that?
Okay, so personal experience, I feel safe in my little control bubble, I know what's going to happen at any time and no one can take that away from me. So I think it's
But
a lot of, what?
do you really?
I mean, both yes and no, but I think that's the short, the answer to why control can feel, it's a good space to be in sometimes. But what do we say? To grow as a human, we need to step out of our comfort zone, or, sometimes we can call it control zone, right? To peek out and see what's out there, right?
Yeah, I like that control zone.
Yeah, it's a weird thing that I say it feels safe, but to me it can, sometimes it can feel safe to be there and like know exactly what's going to happen. And being a Taurus and liking to have my things a certain way, that kind of like resonates. But hey, we're not here to stay in our control zone for the rest of our lives because then nothing is going to happen. So how can we do this without freaking out?
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit about what you said about, when I'm in this control zone, I know exactly what's going to happen. And I think that speaks volumes to the idea of it's an illusion. You
Mm.
think and you think you know what's going to happen, right? Or you feel like you have some control over exactly what's going to happen. But do you really?
No, of course not. Don't ruin my illusion.
I'm here to challenge you,
Yeah,
Frida.
I love
I didn't mean to burst your bubble so quickly, but yeah.
it. It's
But I think you're absolutely right. I think
okay.
that people do create this, illusion that if I make all these lists and if I do exactly these things, then I can predict exactly what's going to happen,
Yeah.
And then you spill your coffee and your entire bubble bursts and your whole day is ruined. And then you spiral off into never, never land, right? And just whatever. So I think it really is an illusion of control, but yes, it does keep us in. And I like the term control zone, and
Yeah.
it's the same thing as safety zone and comfort zone and whatever else. If I do these things, then my life will be predictable.
Also boring.
Yeah, also boring, exactly, right? But we do feel like we have to have control over something. We very few people can just let go and go with the flow. It's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And I myself try, and I mean, I've sort of let myself be open to opportunities as they present themselves and try not to get stuck in a rut and try not to, you know, be in a predictable, because I like unpredictable. I mean, part of it is how I grew up, expecting the unexpected. So I feel like it's freed me up a little bit. But at the same time, there's also been times in my life when I'm like, I just wish I had control over something, because you just kind of feel out of control. And that's not the best scenario either, right?
Mm. Yeah. No, I'm the opposite to you, so I guess that's why we match so well. But
Right.
I love the feeling of knowing what's gonna happen. I don't like surprises. Doing crazy things. I want to be like both feet on the ground, watching what's going unfolding in front of me instead of being in the midst of it. But yeah, I love to hear you say that. I wish I was more like that.
Oh, well, let's work on it. Okay. Well,
What do I do it to? No, but I love when we bring it back to the horses because that's
yeah.
what we do with our coaching. So can we talk a little bit what happens when you're trying to control a situation when you're working with a horse?
That's a great point, because I've seen people, where if they are fairly controlling in their day to day lives, and they don't like change and they don't like unexpected scenarios, when they're in the presence of a horse, and people that are equestrians will try and do this as well. I mean, it's not exclusive to people with no horse experience,
Hmm.
but you try and, like, for example, maybe you ask your client to walk into the arena and approach the horse and pick up their foot, right? So I've seen people do all kinds of things, like lean into the horse and try and push the horse, so that they take the pressure off their foot, and the horse then absolutely resists,
Hmm.
because horses are into pressure animals. So if you're once you get too close to them, they're going to lean in, right, as opposed to go the other way, unless they entirely don't feel safe. But
Yeah.
when you force or try and force a horse to do something, it does not come out the way you have anticipated. Just because your agenda is to get the horse to do this thing, you're not having a conversation, and the horse doesn't trust you. So if you approach it from a position of questioning rather than forcing, oh, hello, horse. How can I get you to pick up your foot? Right?
Hmm.
Rather than you're going to pick up your foot whether you like it or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think a lot of that is just how you approach things. And then, if you start to approach other things the same way you would approach a horse in that regard, and not force it, then you may have a different outcome. What is your experience?
I mean, when you talked about this and the hoof and everything, it brought me back to a couple years back when I was in training to become an equine coach. Uh, and we talk a lot about having, patterns in life. You do things like over and over again, just the same. You say you're going to change, and that's not going to happen because you go back straight back to the pattern, right? And one of my pattern is to almost fulfill my dreams. But then the second I know it might happen, I kind of like take a step back and stop whatever I'm doing, right? So hearing you talking about this and the pressure on the horse, I had this session with one of my instructors at the time, and I was trying to control the horse because I wanted to show how good I was at, working with the horse. And here I am, almost an equine coach. Look at me, look at me. And then it backfired. And what I felt in that second when I was a total mess and nothing was working, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to go through with certification. This is done. It was fun. But hey, this is not for me. But thank God I had such a great instructor. He talked to me and said like, okay, is this showing up anywhere else in your life? Starting asking me
Classic.
all these questions. And I'm like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. So what I did then, I just totally decided to not be in control and see what would happen and be okay with failure or, all these icky feelings. And guess what?
What?
The
Tell
horse
me.
did exactly as I wanted it to do because I was relaxed, I was in the moment, I was okay with failure or, whatever would come up. So that was a great life lesson for me. And I think about it still to this day.
I love that. That's a great example. And I love how you started it out by talking about patterns and talking about doing things the same way over and over again. And I think we do that, right? We're like, I'm going to do it this way. 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 And you do it that way and you keep getting the same result. You don't get a different result. So, like you said, when you stopped, took a step back, let go of your I have to do it this way, and tried something new. Wow, different result. Amazing.
Yeah, it was actually very amazing. That's so easy. Like, why didn't I think about that before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were forcing it and forcing things
Everywhere.
to go a certain way, right? As the old cliche, putting a square peg in a round hole, no
Mhm.
matter how hard you try, it is not going to go in there.
Yeah.
And you've wasted time, you've wasted energy, you've wasted whatever else, and you're exhausted and you're frustrated. And then you're like, oh, maybe if I shave the corners off this square peg, it'll fit into the round hole a little bit better. Oh, imagine that.
Mm.
The other thing I think that is important is when we're talking about patterns and so forth is like the beginner's mindset. If you want to step out of your comfort zone and try something new, try looking at things with fresh eyes and as a beginner. And I think it's hard for us when we have reached a certain level of accomplishment in our life, but whether business or relationships or whatever, that it's hard to be like, oh, now I've got to go back and be a beginner, right? Like when we were, we thought we knew about horses, we thought we knew about this and that and the other thing. And then you're in this new program and you're learning what it's like to be an equus coach. And you're like, oh, shit, I don't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you have to be vulnerable.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and speaking of being vulnerable, I think, and I talked to you a lot about this, coming from a different country, speaking a different native language. It's all, it's still in 11 years into living in the US. I'm still like, thinking about the way I talk, or, if I can't find words in English, I get nervous and like prefer to be quiet instead of trying to get people to understand me. And that's also something just, hand in hand with that.
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right. Vulnerability is another thing. It is probably one of the main things, right? Fear, vulnerability that keep us in that control zone. Because if we can, like you said, being quiet is a method of control. Not speaking up, it's, another method of control because if you speak up and you say the wrong word or you think you say the wrong word, then it's like being with the horse. Then you're immediately like, oh, I'm a failure. Whatever. And you've seen me try and speak Swedish.
You're doing it great, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, one word, right?
Yeah.
One word at a time. It's kind of like, my limited language skills, but
Turtle.
still, it's hard. And I think that, whenever you're trying to do something new, it puts you in a place of vulnerability, and yeah. And so then you just revert back to, okay, I'm just going to continue doing it the way that I've been doing it so that I don't, you know, look stupid or, be judged. And I think that's another beautiful reason why we use horses because they don't judge us.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they just tell us how it is, and then we just have to accept that and move on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they do force us to try a different way. Like if you are trying to do something with a horse and it's not working, and I've done this with my clients, and they just look frustrated. They're like, this isn't working. The horse won't move, or I can't, this is not. What else can you try? Oh, oh, right. All of a sudden they're like, oh, I could try something different. Yeah. Well, what else can you try? Oh, okay. And so I think it does open people up to different ways of thinking, different ways of being. And it like you were talking about energy and Reiki in our last session, taking, energetically removing those blocks to let things flow again.
Yeah. Just one thing about, when a client goes in with the horse for the first time and they always ask me, okay, what are the rules? What can I do and what can I not do? I'm like, I mean, it's pretty simple. We don't have any rules unless you cannot lay flat on the ground or you can't ride the horse. Otherwise, like, go for it. They're like, oh, that's the hardest thing ever to just like have a free, you can do whatever you want to do. That's,
Yeah, that's really funny that you mentioned that because I don't know about you, but I've seen other people and myself, I've experienced this. If I demonstrate a method
uh-huh.
or two to how to work with the horse when it's the client's turn, they will do exactly what we did.
Right?
Right?
So we have to be mindful.
Yes, exactly. Because like you said, it's like when you allow people to open up and say, you can do whatever you want. That's scary. Like, no, 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 tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. I mean, I've been in that situation before. It's like, I don't really want to experiment. Just tell me what I need to do and we'll be good.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, yeah.
So what can we do? What are some of the things that we can do, Frida, that we can, leave our listeners with that can help people understand a little bit more about this concept and the illusion of control?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things you can do, right? But I think we're gonna come back to this over the episodes. But it's like check in with yourself first. Is this true? What is my body telling me? Is this real, or is it just a story I made up in my head? Like that's always like the first go-to in my opinion. And if the answer is this is not true, well then it's just an illusion, right? Yeah. What do you have as suggestions, Sue?
Yeah, so I would say to build on that, just take that moment, ground yourself, and say, "Am I forcing this? Right? Am I forcing my agenda or my way of being on this situation or on this person?" And if the answer is, yeah, probably, right? Try a different approach, right? If you're doing something one way and you're continually getting the same result, try something new.
Yeah. Yeah. Easy as that.
Yeah, there we go. We've solved yet another world problem.
Love it. So easy. 20 minutes. That's what it takes.
It's all it takes, right? Once again, tortoise steps, right? Step,
Yeah.
stop, evaluate, step, stop, evaluate, move forward slowly, right? Any other words of wisdom today before we wrap it up, Frida?
You do you. And I
Frida's
do
new slogan.
myself.
You do you. All right, everyone. I hope that you have found a little tidbit of wisdom in our episode today. And, get out there and challenge that illusion of control. Do you really have control? Is it necessary to have control? And if you don't, can you let it go and get back in the flow? Right, Frida?
That's so true.
All right. Thanks for joining us today. If this podcast has been helpful, please share it with a friend, tell a friend, whatever. Rate us, listen to the podcast, subscribe, and we're here for you.
Yes, we are.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
That's it for today's episode of The Air is Free. I hope this conversation gave you something to think about, something to let go of, and maybe even a little more space to breathe. If you enjoyed this episode, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button, rate and review the podcast because it helps more people find us and join in the conversation. And if something resonated with you, share it on social media and be sure to tag us. We'd love to hear your thoughts. You can follow us on Instagram, hit us up on our websites. Just come, say hi, send us a message, or let us know what topics you'd love to hear more about. Until next time, take a deep breath, let go of what you can't control, and remember, Luften er free.